Hi, Dorothy. Hi. Oh,
I don't see your face. I see a good shot of your pencil. That's it. I can't hear you. You're on mute. It doesn't say that you're on mute, but I can't hear you.
hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Dorothy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, Candace.
Hi.
And Dorothy. Hey, Dorothy. I'm so sad to hear that you are wanting to leave your position. We've been just so fortunate to have you.
Well, there comes a time.
In everyone's life.
It'll be 3 years, so
Yeah.
Well, it's been a real service. I'll say this again once everybody gets here, but
you don't need to.
well, I want to.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, you're,
Uh-huh.
yeah. we can hear
I
you
don't
now.
know. Whenever I get on, the computer changes something and I have to go through this every time. So I'm glad you can hear me.
I totally understand.
we?
I have some kind of problem almost every time with my phone and between my phone and my computer, and this time I got on without a hitch, so I was just lucky.
Well, am I hearing that Dorothy's not going to be secretary?
Hi, Todd. Yes.
Oh,
And you want to be gone by April, is that right?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And Todd, I sent you an email saying I'll be there the March the 2nd Thursday at 11.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
and Todd, I got your last text. We're on.
All right, sounds good. My schedule is filling up even as I sit down.
How have you been, Candace? I haven't talked to you in a while.
I'm doing pretty well. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
I had been until today, actually,
Uh-oh.
where I've got something going on with my lungs, but it's the upper part of my lungs, and I'm not coughing and I'm not sick in any way, except that I'm just dead tired and my mind is not working very well. So I probably am going to bow out early tonight, but yeah, I've got something happening that I doubt is COVID. I'm not believing in COVID anymore. So
Are you going to test?
I will if I still feel awful tomorrow.
Good.
But I don't have, the sneezy, coughy, respiratory kind of stuff. It's just the upper part of my lungs,
Hmm.
but I'm not coughing. So I don't know what that is.
So I hope you feel better soon.
Thank you.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, Tom.
When you all get to the agenda, can I have a few words at the very beginning as parliamentarian, please?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm gonna run and get my agenda that I just printed though.
Okay. The gang's all here, at least a lot of it seems like. So Tom's off getting something about the agenda. I was saying earlier, I have something happening with my lungs and I'm dead tired and not fully mentally here. So I am gonna leave early, but I'll be here for president's report at least. Take it away, Tom, if you've got something about the agenda. Oh, well, I'll call us to order.
Yeah. Yeah, just as an item between the amending the agenda, and maybe that's what it is. I'd like a few words before the opening words as a parliamentarian.
That you got it right now. Go for it.
Okay, a couple of things. I just got my quarterly newsletter from the National Parliamentarians Association. And I haven't fully digested a section, but there is a section that is designed to expedite meetings, either small meetings or large meetings, in which after there's a discussion on an item and it would seem like it's appropriate to have a motion to approve or deny something, the chair can actually make a motion, which I didn't fully realize, much as the chair can say, if there's no objection, we will appoint so-and-so. The chair can say, if there's no objection, I move that blah, 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 and that accounts for both a motion and a second. And it stands for good as if it's a motion made from the floor. It just expedites things. However, if anybody from the audience, be it a small meeting like this or a large meeting, objects, then it has to be put forth for actual discussion. It needs a second and that sort of thing. But a lot of the things that you all do, the chair says, can I have a motion or something like that? The chair can actually make the motion.
Okay.
So that's something to keep in mind, and I would help you with that as the case may be. The other thing is, since the recording secretary and a board member, board members are elected, et cetera, and selected. If there's a resignation of a trustee or a recording secretary, that needs to be recognized in the meeting by a motion, since it's something that is created. Those two positions are created in the bylaws. So that's something that you want to do formally if there is a resignation of a trustee or resignation of the recording secretary.
Very apropos, since we have both going on.
Well, that's what I thought. Okay.
Thank you. That's very
right.
useful.
Thank you. Yeah, we're on.
Okay, so is there anything that we need to amend for tonight's board meeting then?
I would like to suggest that the third from the last item, which follows policies, procedures, subcommittee update. It's the executive session board vacancy discussion. I suggest that we put a discussion first. I think that it would be useful to hear if there's input from other people about what it is that we're looking for in someone to fill. And it's possible that there might be somebody in the congregation who would be interested in stepping up. So I would like to put that before going into any executive session.
I'm not sure, I'm not sure that meshes with the way that we have talked about board vacancies in the past. Anybody please correct me if they remember this differently, but I had thought that it was that talking about potential people being on the board was something that the board actually wanted to have be private. Is that, did other people get a different impression of that?
Yeah, my sense is that I concur with that entirely. There should be no discussion of individual, individuals who might be candidates. More about what it is that the board or people that other people that want to weigh in feel might be good to look for in somebody who joins the board. That's my thought.
Okay, all right.
And I would just also add that I should have known and corrected that the board actually has to vote to go into executive session. So we just have to make a motion and have a second to actually be able to do that by official practice, I guess.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. And
But we don't have to change the agenda for that. I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention that we have to vote to do that. And then I just figured that I would put us in a breakout room. I have the power to put us in a breakout room and then we can just come right back. So if people want to stick around and wait for us to come back, they're certainly welcome to do that according to our policies for our bylaws, actually for a breakout session or an executive session.
Mhm.
and Lynn, I think I may not be around that long tonight. I'm fading as I speak.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Um,
I'll just take over when you need
Okay,
when you need me to. We have a quorum. We're missing Lilia, but we still have a quorum, correct?
A quorum is,
Yes.
correct
Yes.
me.
yeah,
Four.
yeah.
Okay.
That's very good. Okay. So, opening words with Todd then, please.
Okay. As many of you know, I'm a John Denver fan, and he's written one suite that includes homage to each of the 4 seasons. So I thought this would be an appropriate reading for today. The reading on winter. It's cold. It's cold and it's getting colder. It's gray and white and winter all around. And oh, I must be getting older. All this snow is trying to get me down. There's a fire in the corner slowly dying. Sometimes I just don't feel like going on. And yet, I know it's more than worth the waiting for another chance to see the summer sun. Come on, shine on me.
That sounds like John Denver. So, do we need to amend the minutes for January? Okay, then I move, if there are no objections, to approve the minutes from January. Did I do that correctly, Tom? Okay. And now back to Todd for the minister's report.
Okay, I thought I would start by giving you an update on the NAUA. For those who haven't heard, we finally received our articles of incorporation. We were recognized as a nonprofit organization by the state of Washington on February 17th, on Friday. So that will be our official birthday. The group that is organizing this is moving together or moving rather as swiftly as possible, I will say, to get the organization up and running. The biggest hurdles right now are one, getting our own nonprofit bank account, which is now in process thanks to the Articles of Incorporation. Could happen as soon as next week. So folks can begin supporting us online, and that leads to the second hurdle, which is actually having a website that will enable us to do that. We do have at least a preliminary website in the works, and I think it'll be good enough for us to at least launch the organization sooner than later. We have had a lot of interest. I had a conversation with several members of a congregation out in California, whose congregation is really divided over what's going on. Same sort of thing we've been hearing. They've been being shut down by their own church leadership from talking about, questioning the new status quo. And so they're ready to move on and form a new congregation and join the NAUA. I've received a call from a minister who was really pretty much disenfranchised from the UUA, who nevertheless was called to serve a congregation in Maine, who said, "Hey, I'm all alone. I don't know what to do." And I said, "Well, you know what? That's an easy fix. We'll go ahead and start our monthly ministers meetings next month. So we're going to start having a place where ministers can come together and support each other very soon, and then probably follow that up with a monthly service for NAUA members who will want to maybe on a one Saturday a month or something, but an actual service. So we've got plans to really move forward with this, pretty swiftly. And hopefully we'll be up and have a web presence by the end of next month for sure, is sooner if at all possible. The other thing I would report on is that the UUA, I learned recently, has made changes to the Ministerial Fellowship Committee, actually changes to its many of its processes involving meeting with, just involving ministers in general, but including meeting with ministers who are seeking at least initial fellowship into the Ministerial Fellowship Committee. And a lot of it was troubling, but the one that really, see if I can pull it up here. The one that struck my got to remember which form it is. Here it is. Yeah, there's the changes were mentioned in a report last year, I think, or 2021, I should say. And they've changed the frequency in which they're going to be holding these meetings and be less strict on the time of them. And the reason for this in one sentence is that the tyranny of time is one manifestation of white supremacy culture that deeply affects the Ministerial Fellowship Committee. So
what does that even mean?
Yeah, well, exactly. The Ministerial Fellowship, it means, for one thing, they consider the Ministerial Fellowship Committee to be impacted by white supremacy culture, and that actually expecting people to show up at a specific time is part of the tyranny of time that is white supremacist.
I think there's a whole lot of poetic discussion of the tyranny of time throughout the ages.
Well, I mean, and we're all subject to the tyranny of time, right?
Right.
None of us can escape that.
Just not exactly how they're meaning it.
Almost like time and space are sort of scientific concepts, not cultural inventions.
Cultural construct.
Almost like, huh?
Yeah. So But, I find it very insulting to anybody, including people of color who that somehow they function differently in relationship to time and the expectation that people should, show up for work on time, or that you should ask people to come to meetings on time is a form of white supremacy. I mean, we've come a long way if that is what discrimination looks like, asking people to come to meetings on time. Anyway, that is my report for now, unless there's any questions.
Yeah, Tom.
Well, just a suggestion, Todd. In the meeting that I was in on Monday night, the other gentleman, David, was there. I thought described something that maybe you could share with the board. That was where he was apparently considering membership in a church, but was going to have to be judged by the minister about whether he was acceptable. If I got that right, is that just part of this whole thing that's rolling along? If I'm right.
It is. It's not an unusual story where somebody who is wanting to join a UU church has to go through the minister now, and the minister sort of checks to see if they pass muster, particularly if they have given reasons for caution, like questioning the UUA's desire to eliminate the 7 principles, for example, or questioning the wisdom of the 8th principle, which, as I mentioned a long time, was going to go away nevertheless. There's another congregant who contacted me from a completely other church who's been involved in this church as a friend for many years, but is now very involved in preserving the 7 principles in the UUA, and she's been denied a membership in this congregation because she has spoken against the denied membership by the minister for speaking against the Article 2 changes. So this is, something. These kind of stories are things I'm hearing all the time now, where ministers at churches. This is one of the great ironies to me that, a small number of people compare me to Donald Trump or our church to a tyranny or a dictatorship. And I actually hear these stories where, ministers are forbidding classes from being taught or forbidding book studies from happening in their building. Could you imagine me telling anyone in our congregation that they can't study a particular book? I mean, you guys would throw me out. First of all, they'd say, who the hell are you to think you can tell me not to have a study a book, right? Or to have a class. And secondly, the congregation should rightfully be outraged and say your services are no longer needed. But this kind of things have become commonplace in UU churches. It is. I hear stories like this just about every week, sometimes every day. I get emails from people all around North America who are telling me about the conflict in their church that is erupting over this. And by the way, something has happened within the last since January. My book sales have increased by about 30%. Now, I've often said I usually sell a book, a book or 2 per day on average. It's almost doubled in the last 3 months. So people are continuing to awaken, to become aware. I mean, I just sort of judge that as a guide that people are still curious about what's going on, or increasingly curious. Maybe the announcement of the NAUA had something to do with that. I'm not sure, but certainly, there is a movement out there afoot. So yeah, Lynn.
Yeah, Lynn, you've been hanging out there waiting to talk.
Yeah, Lynn, and then Karen. I saw Karen's hand up too. So
Oh, I was just going to ask if you know of any changes to at least the website. I don't know if it's in their bylaws, but related to congregational polity at all. Like, are they just denying that now? Is there no such thing anymore?
It's a good question. I don't know of any particular changes that have been written. What I know is there's been discussion of putting these things these changes in the bylaws, like, for example, they were talking about changing the bylaws in order to require people to recovenant. And that was, that plan was orchestrated over a period of years from 2015 to, I think, 2017, 2018. And then the last recommendation was to put that in front of the voting delegates at the General Assembly, and it never happened. And yet they just started talking as if we have become a covenantal relationship, or a covenantal religion, right? So that's just one example. We also know that committee on recovenanting wanted to change the language to stop referring to the organization as a member service organization and to refer to it as a covenanting religion. So it seems within keeping that rather than try to argue that idea, which would be very controversial and maybe difficult to put into a bylaw, that they would just say, well, let's just treat it like we want. Same thing happened with, last year they wanted to change the bylaws to allow them to put forward just one candidate for president, and the delegates said, well, no, you can't do that. Please at least pretend this is democratic and choose two, and then let us pick one. And nevertheless, this year they put forward just one candidate. Said, well, we tried, but too bad. So they seem to be ignoring their own bylaws. So I think there is a tendency to where if they don't think they have a chance of changing the bylaws, just go on and act like we did. Karen.
Yes, Todd, I'm referring to your minister's minute as of today, and this group of ministers that you're working with, this interfaith group. And I'm wondering what the goal of it is and whether any potential, draft conclusions or something will come back to us as a congregation so we can have a look at whatever statements you come up with.
Yeah. Actually, it's. I understand it's going to be sort of a short-lived committee. We're moving very swiftly to get some kind of statement to the city leadership, and that is going to include, a statement of common values, at least values that every organization every religion that is part of this work anyway has agreed upon, and I they are, as I mentioned Sunday, doing consensus, so there won't be any values that don't reflect at least the voices of everyone on the committee, which I find admirable, since I had issues with a couple of them at least. And then we are to move into hopefully making some sort of recommendations around resolving the issues of homelessness in particular, and how to respond to crime in our community in general, and making recommendations to the mayor, to the county sheriff, to the city council through this report. So there will be something physical that will come out of it, and it should be. I don't know when the work is supposed to be done, but not long. I mean, we're moving. We're actually going to be meeting twice next month, just to stay up with our schedule. The new sheriff came and spoke with us the other night, and ended up, sort of stopping our work a little bit, even though it was very interesting hearing his perspective on things. But to make up for it, we decided, well, let's have two meetings in a row. So it is a very specific piece of work, and we should end up with a report that we'll give to the city officials, and I'd be happy to share that with the congregation.
Great.
I'm trying very hard to represent you, and well, I shouldn't say I'm trying hard. one of the refreshing things about this, you know, I went to lunch yesterday actually with the leader of this group, who is he's a very conservative Christian and a really good guy, and he's been kind of curious about Unitarianism due to some statements I've made in those meetings, and wanted to know more. And so we talked for a couple of hours, and I, you know, told him a lot about our religion and what it's about. He was very curious, never offensive, never hostile, genuinely curious. And you know, after it was done, he just gave me a big hug and looked me in the eyes and said, "I love you, and I just wish more people in the world could do what we just did." And
Wow.
I thought about that compared to how I'm being treated by the UUA. You know, it just brings tears to my eyes to think that we can find that kind of tolerance from people who are so ideologically different from us, politically different from us, and not find it in our own religion.
Are you speaking of the man who was the president of the Mormons? Is that-
No,
Oh.
no, this fellow is from a more, just a traditional, more conservative Christian church.
Mhm.
And he's the chair of this committee.
Wow,
Mhm.
good. Well, I skipped the president's report. As I told you, my mind is not totally here tonight, but we have a couple of very important vacancies, and I wanted to talk about Daryl has resigned from the board, and so there will be an opening there, but I just really wanted to say how much I appreciated his being on the board and his work on the board, and he wrote beautiful board slivers and was always somebody who I appreciated, in part because he often would put forward things that I didn't immediately agree with, but that were very useful for me and others, I think, to consider. And I'm sorry that he's moving on, but that will be something that we'll talk about later, about filling that position. And the other person who's going to be leaving us is Dorothy, who wants to be gone by April from her wonderful recording as a secretary duties. I mean, I just can't imagine anybody better. It always is so right what you write down, and I just really appreciate your having been here and wanted to tell you that. And I know everybody does, but thank you so much. So I guess we'll have to be putting our thinking caps together on that. And again, my in-person experience with our church has been so very limited that I have to say I know so few people well that I don't have any ideas myself. So I'm going to have to be relying on people with some history to come up with some good ideas with both of those vacancies. I also wanted to say that we had a really good budget summit meeting with many of the board members there, and it just was, again, so reassuring that our monetary situation is in good hands. Rebecca and Todd have done a beautiful job, I think, and has gone somewhat unrecognized by this board, because I don't think we've ever all been as involved as we were this time, and just seeing really every little line item, and everything just was making perfect sense. It was conservative and responsible about conserving our options and our finances well, and yet furthering our goals. So I think that's really unique to have a church do so well at being able to create a budget that actually works and getting the job done that we want done. So I'm very appreciative of all of the people involved in that. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is that there are going to be 8 openings for GA representatives this year at the annual meeting. And I and I think maybe a couple other people here have said that they're willing to participate as voting members only. And I would love to have a way of finding more members among the church that would like to be part of that assembly. So I am hoping we will be putting the word out on that so that we get a good selection of folks.
Uh,
And
Quick
Go ahead.
question, just out
Yes.
of curiosity, you mentioned 8 voting. Is that the official number that our congregation is eligible for at this time?
I think that's what Todd said last meeting. Todd, are you sure about that?
You're muted.
Muted.
Yes, I think you asked if it's 8 delegates.
Yes.
It's 1 per 50, so I think we've still reported that many, so, well, so that would be, so I have, maybe it's 7. Boy, I better check on that.
Okay.
It'd be 7, it'd be 7 this year, yeah.
If the membership was 320, as somebody reported in the last meeting, then that would be 6. You'd have to be 350 plus in order to have 7.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check with Rebecca on that then and see, because that would be down, which would surprise me, because we've had new members and maybe we were just misreported last year. I don't know.
If I could interject here, Catherine, this would be an appropriate time for you to make some kind of a motion that the resignations you referred to be are accepted pending any objection.
Okay, then I would like to make the motion that the that the board position that of Darrell's resignation is entered into the record, as well as Dorothy's resignation, so that she will be free by April, is entered into the notes, and unless there are any objections.
I object.
Well, I object too. We don't want them to leave. They have to stay forever. No, we're being playful, and that is not true. Nobody's really objecting. Unless somebody really is. Is anybody really objecting? No. Okay, we have no objections. So that will be entered in the record of this meeting. And now we get to hear about the operations team report with Candace. And you're on mute, Candace.
There we go.
Good, thank you.
The preliminary budget summit was held on February 15th over Zoom. The proposed budget is estimated to be $424,826. Depending on the amount brought in by the generosity campaign, either over or under the projected amount, there may be need for a second budget summit to make adjustments. The operations manager, with the help of office staff, will be conducting the generosity team this year during the month of April. While the operations manager and staff typically conduct about 80% of the campaign tasks every year, and will continue to do so this year, members of the ops team have agreed to come up with this year's theme and to develop effective ways to communicate with congregational members as needed during the campaign. Pertaining to the board's priority of allocating funds in the coming year to update the church's use of technology, an upgrade to the entire sound system will hopefully take place during the coming year, depending on how the generosity campaign goes. Among the system components needing upgrades, the following are included: a more powerful internet connection, a new sanctuary computer, better cameras, microphones and speakers, and replacement of the current soundboard and cables. The Secretary of State annual report required by nonprofits in Washington State was submitted earlier in the month. This spring, the church will transition from using the web host network solutions, a service that has delivered disappointing results, to the web host Bluehost, a service that is expected to perform better. And lastly, Rebecca Adams is researching an alternative for staff health and retirement benefits currently provided by the UUA. The UUA has recently made changes to their insurance program that is expected to affect the benefits that the staff members receive.
So,
Yes, Dick?
a question. Regarding the upgrading of the sound system, you had mentioned the projected budget, 424,000, I think. Is that included in that? Is that foreseen and there's a set aside for it in that budget?
Yeah,
I think so. Is that right, Todd?
yes, and I don't actually know what line item it comes from, Dick, but it would be funding that already exists, and if it doesn't, then it would be something that we would probably ask. I mean, if it got too much, like I can foresee us, changing out some cables and speakers and microphones pretty easily. But a new computer, the one we have is probably 10 years old, so definitely old, but by computer standards. But a decent computer to do what it does could cost as much as $5,000. So my suspicion is some of this stuff's either has to wait till next year, or we would have to do what we did initially, and that is ask some folks who might want to contribute to it, outside of the budget to do so. But we certainly wouldn't spend anything we don't have.
And just one other question, curious about the change in the UUA benefits package. I presume this affects all churches across the country, and it I would infer that the changes are not to the better. So is there anything you can tell us about that?
Sure. Todd, you can add, add whatever, needs to be added. But what Rebecca said was that the UUA contacted her, and I guess all the other UU churches that use their program, that they could no longer, they were going away from using TIA and going to another entity that no one had ever heard of. And when Rebecca asked why, she was told, well, is it TIAA anyway?
Yes, it's TIAA.
Yeah, said, well, they no longer work with churches. So Rebecca followed up on that and called TIAA, and they said, that's not the case. We're sorry to lose UUA. So they were not true. They were not truthful. I think people have a lot of trust in the TIAA, or and want to stay with them. So that's the reason that they'll be looking for.
They're moving to a company called Empower that people hadn't heard of. At least that's what I heard from Rebecca. The company was called Empower.
Yeah.
But they weren't truthful about the reason. That is appalling.
Apparently not.
Betsy had her hand up.
Is this for retirement benefits or health?
Yes, both.
Just retirement?
Both, I think. Is that right, Todd? I think.
I can't remember because I don't get my health through them, so I can't remember if the TIAA covers health or just retirement benefits.
I think it's both.
Both, okay.
Really? Okay, because Empower actually, and it's funny, that's why I raised my hand. This happened to me recently as an employee. my company, huge multinational thing, moved from Vanguard. I think Vanguard was our
Mhm.
retirement manager. You know, they have a very precise name for it, record keeper, you know. Anyway, they moved from them to Empower. And we all had more or less the same reaction, which was, what? Never heard of them. Who's this? But they reassured us, of course, and so forth. And that was several months ago, about a year ago, half a year ago. Everything's okay with Empower as far as I can tell. I think
Are
they're
the
probably,
benefits,
yeah, well, they don't do health care that I know about. They're just, you know, a record keeper for your a company. I really don't know exactly all the services they provide for my company. They're just providing this record keeping role to help manage the company's employees' retirement benefits.
Hmm.
You know, 401k type stuff.
Mhm.
So anyway, I don't know, the prevarication of they don't work with churches anymore, it seems like a reason to investigate, like Rebecca did.
Mhm.
You know, why would they say that if that's not why they're
Right.
changing? But you know, my company has some kind of what they told us was that they review the status of the record keeper every so often and essentially shop around on our behalf. Now, this is what they tell you. Take it all with a grain of salt, but shop around on their employees' behalf for a better deal. And in my 25, 30 years of working, they do change. It changes every 3 to 5 years. Whatever my employer, it gets to be a different record keeper. Vanguard, Fidelity, TIA, CREF, you know, Empower, whoever. It's always moving. So just for what it's worth.
Yeah. Tom, you were wanting to speak?
Yeah, I was involved with that, composing that chat, and I probably missed what you said, Candace. Did you clarify that a line item was suggested to have been added to fund the possibility of NAUA?
No, I did not add that
Okay, that
to
was
my
it.
report.
That was addressed, not that we're going to fund it, but that there'd be a line item. And it was suggested by Betsy that appropriate way to do that is to have a line item with $0 in it.
Mhm.
Is that in the works? Does anybody know?
I thought Rebecca was going to do that.
Yeah.
I thought that
That's
was
that's in the
agreeable.
works. She was waiting for Lynn to come in and add that to the spreadsheet. I'm assuming that happened maybe today, I think is when Lynn comes in, so.
So the MFC changes, we've already discussed that, right, Todd, well enough, or?
Yeah, I think so. That along with the, concern about this change, and it's largely a trust issue. We don't trust the UUA's judgment or motives anymore. It may very well be legitimate. I know that, when I look at the Empower's website, what little I have, there's a lot of emphasis there on equity and racial equality and things that aren't necessarily bad things by any means, but it may be that they're swayed towards going towards that organization because of that emphasis rather than whether or not it's as good a organization as TIAA. TIAA, I think, actually has an African-American CEO, a female CEO. So, I don't know if they weighed those or if that's even part of it, but we just have good reason, especially in our congregation, not to trust the judgment of the UUA right now. So that has a lot of, the few of us who are taking advantage of this benefit concerns. So.
Well, and not trusting the judgment is one thing, but not trusting that they will provide us with accurate facts and explanations is another. And that's pretty serious, even more serious in my book. that we would be told something deliberately that's an untruth. That bothers me a lot.
Yeah.
Not to do with the end result, just to do with how they are conducting themselves as an ethical, one would think, an ethical group of people. Okay, so next we're going to be talking about the engagement and volunteer conversation follow-up. We actually have just set a time to meet for March the 2nd to do that. So do you have any further information about that thus far, Todd? I think that's still a discussion that's waiting to happen with us. You're muted, Todd.
Yeah, regarding the
Engagement and volunteer
yeah,
conversation.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to, I keep going to the wrong form on my computer. The agenda is showing up as a PDF and I always go to my Word document, so I apologize. But yeah, we're going to actually have a meeting, what is it, on the 2nd, I think?
Yes, Thursday, 11 o'clock in the
Catherine-
morning.
Catherine and Karen and I, and then I saw Terry responded to this invitation too, to kind of brainstorm and talk about ideas for, getting both volunteers and engagement among members, both in person and the reason I asked Terry and maybe even Mike Long to join us is to get their input from the perspective of people who would not be able to attend in person. Terry had sent something out a few weeks ago about idea for a music sharing group where people get together on Zoom and talk about why a particular piece is among their favorites, and then they share that, they play it on Zoom and have a little camaraderie around that. So things like that. So we'll plan on getting together and talking about that. And one of the ideas is somehow revamping a volunteer fair that would work for us post-COVID. And then Karen has some specific ideas as well. So we'll have more to report, hopefully, at the March meeting.
Good. Okay, so Lynn and Tom.
Karen has her hand up, sorry.
Oh, yes. Hi, Karen.
Yeah, just very quickly, but it would help, I think, in advance of that meeting, and maybe the board has already put this together, but to have a some kind of a document says what are our teams right now, and who is on them, and what teams have no leadership, and do we have teams that are just adult programs? Is anybody running adult programs, for instance? So that we can see the kind of universe we're working on, because it's obviously a transition time in our church. We're coming out of the pandemic. More people are doing things in person. The first meaningful movies, for instance, is going to be this Friday at our church. Things that, have only been done online for almost more than 2 years now. So it's a good time to just have a scope of what our current committees are, what we might still need, and just where we are.
I would just add that that's likely to come from the operations team or from the shared ministry team. That could help us gather that, but not the boards.
Well, I think Rebecca has that.
Mhm,
I think
she does.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I'll ask Rebecca then.
Oh, good.
Okay.
So do we have some policy and procedures subcommittee update from Lynn and Tom?
Yes, we do have a brief update. We continue to plug along on Thursday afternoons. We have come to a little bit of a challenging section, which is related to board code of conduct, with some rather vague terminology. I don't want to give anybody the impression that we are not taking our work very, very seriously. But there are some terms in there that are things like the board will act appropriately, or just very vague things. So Tom and I spent last Thursday coming up with as many fun things and words that we could use, and we've got something like skullduggery and debauchery are considered poppycock, and we won't stand for that kind of malarkey here. And then Robert wanted to add, and the ladies should not show their petticoat.
Well, and I
So-
would assume you could add in there, the selling of cocaine and heroin are prohibited directly,
Yes, yeah.
especially
So-
on church grounds.
It is pretty interesting. So what's really interesting is that there are a lot of rules. There are a lot of policies that we don't really have a lot of history for, or what was the intention? What were the people who wrote this policy meaning to be the outcome? So it's been a little bit slower going when we got to this board code of conduct section. And so really, I'm just totally teasing up with although we do love those words, skullduggery and debauchery, especially.
And malarkey.
And malarkey. But that's where we are. We are going to keep plugging along. And we really do want to be able to bring something to you all in one piece, because that's going to take a bit of time for the board to digest, basically. And we certainly don't want you to have to all wordsmith everything all over again, as we've been doing. So we're trying to get really down to the nitty-gritty of what really needs to be here, so that you'll have some time. It may or may not be ready before this next annual meeting, which is fine, because the policies are not things that the congregation has to vote on. However, any changes that we want to be making to the bylaws, of course, we need to be bringing those forth actually relatively soon, very soon. So we will be bringing that forward probably with it at the next meeting, at our next board meeting.
Oh, good. Okay.
Tom, any other?
No, but other than to reiterate that I guess I would call them tweaks or adjustments to the bylaws are a result of our having this back and forth discussion about whether there's a good policy that really needs to be in the bylaws, or whether the bylaws were overzealous in referring to the policies and procedures, and there just isn't any reason to have a policy and procedure. So that's the kind of thing that we'll see probably next month for to bring to the board regarding the bylaws, because there's a significant timeline to lead up to congregational meeting with regard to having stuff advertised and all that stuff. So that's all that I would add. Question just for my clarification.
A question just for my own clarification. Are you thinking possibly of, in addition to policies and procedures being modified, there would be some change in the bylaws as well at this point, or not?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, related to what either needs to be reflected in the bylaws from what's in our policies, or vice versa.
Okay.
And it's mostly vice versa, things that that probably either just need clarification from when we revised our bylaws, and then going back through the policies and procedures, oh, this is already done or needs to be tweaked to say such and such. So we've got detailed notes of, these are the things that we need to bring forward so that the board can get those advertised for the upcoming annual meeting.
Mhm.
Because as you recall, all of those bylaws amendments need to be, or potential bylaw amendments need to be now published so that people have time to really consider those things.
And some of them, just by way of a little further explanation, in some instances, there were some, there were some policies, I think at least two that come to mind that were adopted by the board, which were like interim measures because we couldn't just call a congregational meeting to fix something that was lacking in the bylaws. So those policies that you all have adopted as the board, some of them really need to be in the bylaws. So that'll be something else. I mean, that'll be part of what's presented.
One of those is the one the most recently we talked about, which was gifts, receiving donations. And we made that policy, and that's been added to the end of the policies and procedures document. And we would like it to be in the specific article where where donations for the bylaws. So we'll bring that all forward to you.
And you guys are such a great team. And I mean, just detail oriented, paying attention to the exact words, noting what needs to be discussed. Thank you so much for the work thus far. I think we're at a time now where I would make a motion that we break out for an executive session. And I think it's appropriate that we take a vote on that. Oh, sorry, Dorothy, you want to say something?
I just wanted to remind you that somebody needs to let me know what time you end your executive session so I can include that in the minutes.
Well, we're going to come back. We have to come back.
And also, we talked about having a preliminary discussion. Dick wanted to have a preliminary discussion about maybe ideas for what we might be looking for.
Oh, thank you for reminding me.
Sure.
Todd, yes. Okay,
And,
so before we
what-
break out,
What is the expectation then? Is that we all just hang around and wait for you to finish?
I would suggest that since your role is so important, Dorothy, that if someone, when they're completed, if someone could call you and have you join back in, is there any way that could happen? The other people, aren't absolutely as important as the recording secretary.
right. Dorothy, you want to, well, actually, maybe you should give your phone number to, does Lynn have Dorothy's phone number?
I have her phone number.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I can. I'll text. Is it okay if I text you, Dorothy?
That would be fine.
Okay.
And
But
we'll
before,
just leave the meeting, this general meeting open. If anybody wants to just leave it on and go about your business at home if you feel like it, because we're going to go into a little breakout room. And then we'll just come right back in when we're done.
but before we do, we're going to follow up on what Dick had said about just some general things that we might be looking for. in
And
board
also
meetings.
Jean has her hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. And Jean. And Jean, would you like to say something too?
Yes, I'm hoping that these positions on the board will be advertised to the congregation for anyone who wants to run for those positions. And I'm assuming that more than one person could run for a certain position. I don't know if that's something you have to discuss or not, but well, that's a question I have. Can more than one person run for us for a vacant position?
Sure,
Well,
sure.
Tom has, I think Tom wants to
Yeah.
respond.
Yes,
From
yes,
a
Tom.
parliamentarian perspective on that.
Mhm.
The way this is going to take place, the position that was resigned has one more year. In other words, Harold has resigned several months short of completing his second year of a 3-year term. So what will happen is that the board has the responsibility and the authority in the bylaws to appoint someone to the end of this second year of this position's term. And then there will be an election for the remaining 1 year of the 3-year term. And whether the person appointed chooses to run or the nominating committee chooses to nominate somebody else for that position, then it might be a contested election. So just so everybody understands, at this point, the board has the ability to appoint or leave the position vacant. But the bylaws strongly are worded toward appointing somebody, but they would only be appointed to serve the remainder of this term.
The
Great.
remainder of this year of the term.
Yeah, till the next election, right?
Yeah, the
Right.
remainder of the term, which is over on June 30th.
Right. And then
Um,
it's the nominating committee that determines another person to put forward. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Well, it could be that same person, you know. That would be up to the nominating committee to decide who the nominee or nominees are for the 1 year that remains of this 3-year term.
Great.
And there could also be a person who's nominated by petition, as there was.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes.
We also had an earlier resignation by Craig Baldworth. So what happened to that position?
That was a
That
year
was
over.
Last year, yeah, that was last
Yeah,
year.
last year. But was somebody appointed? I'm just sorry, I have lost track of what happened with that.
I don't remember. I think it went empty, and then I ran
Okay.
to serve out his last year.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes.
Does that answer your question, Jean?
Well, would it be up to the nominating committee then to let it be known to the congregation that they are looking for candidates?
It's not, it's not an election at this point, Gina. We have to, the board will fill the vacancy until there is an election, and then the congregation will be involved in the voting.
There isn't anything that would keep the board from consulting with the nominating committee, because they should be in the process already of looking at candidates for the next election, although I'm not sure they are or not, but that would be very wise if they were.
Mhm.
I believe they are.
Good. Does that answer your question, Jean?
Well, my question is the congregation going to be asked to, if someone wants to be on the board, that they make it known to the nominating committee?
I
Not-
don't know.
Not in this instant, but for the general election, most certainly they can let the nominating team know.
Okay, so at the end of this fiscal year, we're not electing any board members?
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying, but
Yeah.
this, we're talking about tonight is actually filling the vacancies between now and then.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's also my understanding that we can invite a guest to come into our executive session. And I would like to recommend, or if he's willing, that Tom join us in that executive session as a parliamentary advisor. I think I know the bylaws pretty well, but it's just nice to have that second pair of eyes on them if other board members are willing.
I would like that very much.
Yeah, fine.
Tom, are you able to join us?
Yeah, and that is subsection C of section 9 of Article 6 that says the board may include somebody else at their choice. Yes, and I'm willing to do that.
And I am a non-voting member of the board per my contract, but you may want to invite me too. So I think what has to happen now is unless there's more discussion.
I think you're supposed to be there, Todd, unless we say not, you
Unless you
can't.
say no. Okay,
Unless you
good.
say no.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
you're
same-
not automatically.
There still needs to be a motion then, and I would include in that motion the invitation of Tom as the parliamentarian. And unless there's further discussion, around preliminary discussion.
And also, just so everybody knows, let's see, it says that at the end of the session, the board is supposed to come back and report generally what took place in it.
Yeah.
They aren't allowed to take any votes in it, but they can generally summarize what took place and they should.
Right.
Yeah.
No votes in executive session.
Right.
Sure, that's true.
Right. Okay, then unless there's an objection, I would make a motion for us to go to executive session, including Todd and Tom as guests. Actually, I think Todd is just a regular part of the
Sorry.
board. Yeah. So yes, please, those people must join us, like, if they're willing. So no objections. So Lynn, I think you have the control to take the ones who are allowed to be there all to the new room.
Okay, it's been about a year since I've done this, so I'm clicking on your names right now, hoping I can do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I don't see my own name on there. So hopefully I will join you, be able to just join you.
We'll call you if you can't.
Whoa, let me clarify one thing. I just for, it does say that section F, any vote associated with a topic discussed in the executive session shall be held during the regular meeting. So if you come to some conclusion, then you need to vote in the open public meeting.
Right.
Just to clarify that.
Okay.
Okay, let's see if this works.
All right, here we go. Join room 1.
Okay, we'll see you soon.
Nice meeting you.
Very good. Good. You,
Conversation
I
is
hope
up.
you know you were recorded. We're gonna go
Yes,
back
we
and
did
watch
know
it.
that. Yeah,
We did. We pointed that out to each other.
Good
we were
job.
under surveillance the whole time.
Mm. So we had some discussion of a number of names and decided that we will do some phone calls to see if there are any takers for short-term filling in. And then we will vote on that at the next meeting about appointing someone, assuming that we have a taker or two for the different positions. And then our next step after that is that if we don't have somebody that is absolutely interested from the number of people that we've talked about, then we will be really strongly consulting with the nominating team and allowing them to do their good work and present some people to be voted on for the next session. So that's what we have so far. Did I miss anything that's important, you guys? Yes, Tom. Oh, you're muted.
Only that you recognize you were going to have to appoint a secretary from amongst you folks because it's required by law.
We're hoping to stick that with the new person.
I don't think that would be fair. Well, and we need somebody to write the slivers for this meeting. You're muted, Todd.
I would say just for the record, it should be clear that there were no formal decisions made in this meeting. Nothing was voted on. And so there's no decisions to come out here and vote on. The board will wait, as Catherine said, until they get feedback from some of those they thought about. And if they would agree, then they would come back and have an open vote in a regular meeting. So.
And that's just for an interim person. And then from there, we would go to an election, at the end of the year very shortly. So.
Yeah. I think you should, this is kind of incidental, I think you should formally notify the nominating team that they will have to be selecting somebody to run for the remaining 1 year of the position, in addition to any other positions that are be expiring coming to the end of the 3-year term.
Which is 3,
3. Mhm.
right?
Right.
Yeah,
Dick,
so. there could
myself
be-
and Ken.
there
So
could
there'll be
be
4 new board
four.
members.
Yeah. And
Wow.
the other thing that we talked about, just for clarification for you, Dorothy, was in the email that you sent, you said you'd be willing to serve through April, but there was conversation that said that you weren't. Would you clarify that for the board so they know what they're looking at?
Well, I won't take minutes past April. If you
Okay.
can't find anyone, that will be my last month is April.
Okay.
I would rather not, I mean, if you can find somebody right away, that would be great, but I know it might take a while.
We're doing our best. So is there anything left that we need to do before we adjourn?
The slivers, Candace, I interrupted Candace after she mentioned the slivers, so I didn't want to.
I'm sorry.
Unless we don't have the slivers this month. I'm not volunteering, I'm just bringing it up.
I'm not volunteering either. I don't know if the slivers means that much this one time. Oh, can't hear you, Dick. You're muted.
I read his lips. He said he would do it.
I said,
you
no
read
way
his
I'm
lips?
doing that.
Hey, Todd said he read your lips, and that is gospel now.
He said, I'm doing that. He said, yay. Oh, yay, I'm doing that.
I said, I'll take a stab at producing a slivers this time.
Oh,
Thank
great.
you.
Dick, you're so awesome.
You are
That's awesome.
absolutely. God.
You're a good
I have-
lip reader, Todd.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got
How
lots of skills
How we
there.
got that from no way that I'm going to do that. I'll
No, he
never
got
do
that from his ventriloquism.
Exactly.
Don't accuse me of ever putting words into somebody's mouth.
On my image, you two are right next to each other, so it was very easy to see Todd being the ventriloquist.
Well, I have to say the board meeting healed me somewhat. I'm feeling better, way better than I was earlier this evening. So
Great.
thank you guys. You brought good energy into my life.
You sound good too.
Thank you. Okay, well, I'm calling a close to the meeting. Do I have to be more formal than that?
Only
Give
thing you
me-
could say is not hearing any objections, declare the meeting closed.
Okay, not hearing any objections. I'm declaring the meeting closed and to all a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night,
night.
everyone. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.